Welcome back to the studio, here for episode 2 of the Winter Rose series. To start this out, we're going to do a bit of a recap on the last episode. If you remember, we had determined our cut lengths and we had cut out some pipe. And as I said, I was going to flatten out some pieces off camera and then submerge them in a vinegar bath for a few days. All of that has happened. As you can see, I'm going to show some footage here. These pieces have cleaned up incredibly well, actually, just with the vinegar bath in and of itself. But that's not quite enough, as there is still quite a bit of copper oxide, as well as the vinegar. Copper is a porous material, so the vinegar is going to soak in just the barest whiff. So we have a little bit of a cleanup process after the vinegar bath here to ensure that our material is stabilized before we start to work with it. So you see, I've got a couple of things laid out here. This is not a weekend fun. This is baking soda, and what that's going to do is it's going to neutralize any of the acids from the vinegar. So the other thing that I have here is Scotch Brite. This is a staple in my shop. I've got a bunch of different grades and selections here. This is what I'm going to be using to clean the majority of this copper for at least the first finish coat. You'll notice in the footage that I showed earlier that the copper in and of itself has one very textured side and one very smooth side. And in the last video, I had proposed the question about if we should have all shiny or all textured or a mixture of both. And the majority of people seem to think that a mixture of both, as in nature, as in everything, nothing's exactly one thing or perfect. So the mixture of both texture and shine is going to be incorporated into this. So that makes my job quite a bit easier in this respect, as I don't have to try to remove a lot of the texture on the inside of this copper piece. So all of that being said, we've got some normal old tap water here, and I've also got just a one-time use plastic dish that I try to use more than once at least. And I'm going to take some of this baking soda and simply just put it in there. Take some water. It will dilute into the water easier, obviously, if the water is warmer, but this should be enough to at least stop the reaction. The other little trick that I'm going to show you here is when you're using something like Scotch Brite to polish a piece of copper, baking soda is your friend. So what I like to do is I just like to soak my Scotch Brite in water and then dab it in baking soda and pick up a little bit of that baking soda onto your Scotch Brite. And what that does is it provides not only neutralizing capabilities, but a slight abrasive to help you in your polishing process. Once you've achieved, I don't want to say a perfect finish on your copper, but at least something that is close to what you hope to achieve on the finished product. At that point, what you want to do is just kind of soak it in baking soda and water until you're ready for your next step. What that will do is it will at least protect that piece of copper until you're ready to use it, so that if you so choose to not have it totally oxidized or with a patina, that will stop the process, because the moment that copper like this is exposed to open air, it begins to oxidize. So when you see what looks like green Kool-Aid here, indeed what this is not Kool-Aid, but it is a mixture of an acid and copper. So if I were to evaporate all of this vinegar away, what I would be left with is something called a copper salt. When I said that vinegar was good for cleaning copper, it's good in this respect. So if you have cookware at home that, like grandma's pot, or you have a water bottle at home that you use that's copper, for copper infused water, some people do this. Do not use vinegar or any acidic product to clean those copper surfaces, because eventually what you're going to end up doing is getting copper salts. Armed with that knowledge, I went ahead and finished the buffing on the copper pieces, and we're just left with a solution of acetic acid 7% and copper. This still has quite a bit of life left in it in regards to in regards to doing exactly what we just did. So I'm just going to label it and appropriately and put it aside for now and use it for my next project. In the midst of that cut, I had laid out a couple of pieces, and I'll show some different shots here. That layout provides us with a starting point to build out the petals on this rose. We're going to build from the center out. So I went ahead and I used a pair of tin snips again to cut the pieces out. I want to show a quick little thing here. These tin snips are, they have a serrated edge. I'm going to show a quick little clip here. In that clip you can see that when the material is cut, there's a bit of a serration around the edge, and I mean, some of that is to protect the actual tinsmith themselves. But I don't want that on my finished product, so I just use a file. After I've cut out the piece, I use a file and just knock that edge off and clean it up as best I can. Now, I did the first two initial forms off camera, and as you can see here, that looks like a bit of a trumpet. And that kind of looks like a trumpet with the side blown out of it. And these two pieces fit together. Like so. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So I'm going to build this out with the additional petals and just kind of come back to you guys. I'll show the last forming of this petal in the next clip. But yeah, you can kind of see where we're going with this. And we're back after forming the first 5 petals for this rose. And we're just about to form the 6th one here. So as you can see, I've got them all formed here and nothing is joined yet. It's all very loose. So the forming process for these is it's quite easy actually. So you just take a couple of pairs of needle nose plier. I want a fairly small radius on the piece that I'm going to be bending, so I'm just going to use a pair of small needle nose to grip with, and I'm going to start the initial bend with another pair of needle nose pliers. Alright, there we go. So, I kind of have a little bit of a dish shape there now. And at this point, I can tweak it on the anvil, pinch it together, spread it apart, however, until it fits with the rest of the pieces that I have made. I mean, there's really there's no major science to this at all. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of guesswork to this. And this is where a lot of it comes in, is you bend something, and if it looks nice to you, then you keep it, and if not, then you just bend it some more or bend it less. And yeah, so you can kind of see where I'm going with this process. I've got 6 done. I have 20 more to do. So each pedal is going to get progressively larger until I come up with a consistent size that most roses do have. I mean, it's not like every single petal is larger than the last. They get to a certain point, and that's where I'm going to be utilizing the majority of these sheets here. So I'm going to do a couple of shots within to show some of the layouts for the other petals, and I'm going to get back to you when I have some more petals cut out and we get to some forming of this copper. In the footage that I showed, you probably saw that I decided on 3 different sizes for the petals. These here are going to be formed, these here are going to be formed with the needle nose pliers, and these other 2, this medium size and this very large size, they're going to be formed using a ball peen hammer, which is this guy right here. And what that is going to require is heat. And I'm going to have to, as I mentioned before, the process of annealing, which is softening of copper. I'm going to have to do that multiple times in the process of forming these outer petals. And the reason being is that I plan on giving them a dish like this. And to do that, I have to draw the material out. So this video in and of itself, I think that might be out of the scope of just this video. I think we covered off a good amount so far in this one. We've made some major progress in regards to having all of our material cut for our petals and our roses. We have our base plate cut as well. We do have our rod for our stem. And I just have to do a little bit more filing and stuff on these, and some forming for the additional smaller petals for the inside. And in the next video, I'm going to hold off on doing any of the other heat forming and get to play with fire in the next video. So if you enjoyed this and you're still here, thank you very much. And however, this is going to be the end of this video. As a bit of a side note here, if any of you are wondering how I'm going to be connecting all of this together, I'm going to be using soldering or soldering technique with a soldering iron. So yeah, you won't want to miss that. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time. Take care.